Namo Harihutanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Uvajjayanam, Namo Loe Sauva Sahunam, Eso Panchanamakkaru, Sauva Pavak Panasano, Mangalanam Cha Sauvesim, Padamam Havai Mangalam. With this, I welcome to all the participants and our speaker. Before we proceed, I would just like to let you know that this meeting is time restricted. So after 40 minutes, we might get logged out. So please just join in with the same link. Proceeding forward, I would like to introduce to you all about the ancient Jainism. Ancient Jainism is an initiative to spread awareness on Jain history, heritage, archaeology, literature, and other related aspects. Currently, we are undertaking two projects. First is Jain Temple series, which involves short videos on Jain historical sites across the Indian subcontinent. And second is online sessions that are organized from time to time, revolving around interesting topics that cover fascinating aspects of the Jain world. To get regular updates, please follow us on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Without wasting any further time, I invite Oshin to introduce our today's speaker, Dr. Yogesh Prabhudesai.
Thank you, Deepti. I'm very much delighted to welcome Dr. Yogesh Prabhudesai to the platform of Ancient Jainism. So just giving a brief introduction of what Dr. Yogesh Prabhudesai's profile. Dr. Yogesh Prabhudesai completed his GD Arts degree from Kalaniketan Mahavidyalaya, Kolhapur. He secured his bachelor's degree in English literature from Shivaji University, Kolhapur. He then went on to do his master's in Indology from Tilak Maharashtra Vidyapith, Pune. Dr. Prabhudesai was awarded his doctorate in Ancient Indian History, Culture and Archaeology from the prestigious Department of Archaeology, Deccan College Postgraduate and Research Institute, Pune, in 2021. He was also involved in the study of famous Kopeshwar Temple in Khidrapur and was a research assistant on ICSSR major research project, India's Princely State Museums, Legacy and Legitimacy, a colonial and post-colonial approach. He has a number of books and research papers published to his credit, including the temples of Kolhapur, an overview of the ancient art and architecture, Kolhapuratil Mandir Sampada, the monolithic temples of Parsambe, Sri Mahalakshmi Samagra Darshan, an appraisal of the Shakta Pit of Kolhapur, changes of concepts and utilizations of architectural elements in Indian temple structure, past and present with special reference to Kolhapur. The list goes on, and I'm very happy that apart from being a very academic man and a man of letters, Dr. Yogesh Prabhudesai is a very good human being at heart and a very good and dear friend to me, and I'm very delighted to welcome him on the platform of Ancient Jainism. Mr. Prabhudesai, you can take over from this side.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Before we start, I request all the participants to please keep your audios on mute. So you can continue now.
Yeah, all right. So, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Team Ancient Jainism, for giving me this platform to present my studies in Jainism, early medieval Jainism, especially from Kolhapur. So, without wasting a single moment, I think I should start with the presentation. Deepti, let me know when you see the full screen preview.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it is visible
Yeah,
now.
you see it, right? Okay,
yes.
Fine. So, today's subject, an introduction to Jainism in the early medieval Kolhapur. So, for that, we need to understand basics of Kolhapur. So, Kolhapur is an important district in the Western Maharashtra. It has been an important district. It is an important district. In the Satvahan period, it was a trading center, and the Brahmapuri excavations proved its importance in the history of India in particular. Then, after the 4th century, we begin to see Kolhapur again gaining importance in the Shilahara period, that we can say roughly from 10th century onwards. We begin to see Kolhapur as a religious center. Then Kolhapur was won over by the Yadavas of Devgiri. Then it was taken by the Bahamanis and the Adil Shahis and rest of the Islamic dynasties. Then it became an important center in the Maratha period as well. And Kolhapur became a princely state in the year of 1872 CE. Kolhapur, at present, Kolhapur is very famous for the Mahalakshmi temple and for the Kopeshwar temple, Khidrapur. But in the early medieval period, Kolhapur was an important center for the Jainism. And that we're going to see in this presentation. So here is the district map and topographic map of Kolhapur. So here we can see that the location of Kolhapur is very important because it is located on the Western Ghats, and it was on the threshold of trade route from from the upper part of Maharashtra to the coastal part of Maharashtra. So to understand the Jainism in Kolhapur, we must understand Jainism overall in the Deccan. As far as history go or the evidences go, so Jainism was well established in Karnataka from the 6th century CE. Since Kolhapur was a part of Karnataka culture, so we must understand the Jainism in Karnataka. So as far as evidences go, Jainism was well established in Karnataka from the 6th century CE, and there were three main branches of Jainism present in the Karnataka. One was Yapaniya Sangha, second was Mula Sangha or Mula Sangha, and then the Nirgranthas. So, and all these, all these terms were mentioned in the inscriptions. So, what is Mula Sangha and what is Yapaniya Sangha? So Mula Sangha is nothing but a direct branch of Digambar Jainism, and Digambar Jainas were also identified as Nirgranthas. And the Yapaniyas, that is Apabhransh Prakrit form of Gopaniya. Gopaniya, it means some sort of secret. So it is because of their tantric influence on their rites and rituals. So how these sanghas really work? So they had this kind of stratigraphy, we can say. So one is the sangha that we can call as group. Then there is this anvaya. Anvaya, it means the lineage of that group. And there is this gana. Gana is again a smaller group. So this is how the Jainism worked in the early medieval period all over the Indian subcontinent. So in Karnataka especially, how many ganas we see? Now let us look at the list here. From the Yapaniya Sangha, we see Karaya Gana, Punnaga Bruksha Mula Gana in Karnataka. Then from Mula Sangha, we see Deshiya Gana, Kranura Gana, Sena Gana, Surastha Gana, Balatkara Gana, and Punnaga Bruksha Mula Gana. So here we can see that Punnaga Bruksha Mula Gana was again a common gana among the Yapaniyas and the Mula Sangha. So the early medieval Kolhapur was ruled by the Shilaharas, the Shilahara dynasty, and they came to power roughly from 10th century onwards after the downfall of the Rashtrakutas. And the Shilaharas, they claim themselves as hailing from the Tagapura, that is the Ter in Osmanabad. And Ter has been an important site that we know. So here is the lineage of the Shilahara kings. So the established, from the inscriptions, we can see that the founder of the Shilahara lineage was the Jatiga the first, then Naivarman, Chandra, then Jatiga the second, then Gonka, then Guhala, then Guhala the first, then Kirti Raja, then Chandralitya, then comes Marasingha, then Guhala the second, then Ballala, Gonka the second, Bhoja the first, Gandaraditya, Vijayaditya, and Bhoja the second. Of them, Kolhapur yields inscriptions from the Marasingha to the Bhoja the second. Okay, so we can say that the evidences of Jainism in Kolhapur are roughly from 11th century to the 13th century. All right. Okay, so first let us understand the Jainism in Kolhapur found in the inscriptions. The very first inscription regarding Jainism that is found in Kolhapur is from Honnur. Honnur is a small place at about half an hour distance from Kolhapur towards east. Yes, and there is this place called Kagal, and in that Kagal Tehsil, this Honnur is located. And there, on the pedestal of Parshvanatha idol, we see an inscription, and what it tells that the Ballara and Gandhara, that is the Gandaraditya. So both the kings did donated six cubit house, perhaps a plot, and 200 kammas for the daily feeding of the munis from the Jinalaya built by Bamma Gavunda, the disciple of Ratrimati Kanti of Mula Sangha Punnaga Brukshamulagana. So this Ratrimati Kanti, a lot of scholars have speculated that this Ratrimati Kanti could be a sadhvi, a female ascetic in Digambar Jainism. But considering the Mula Sangha and its direct connection or the a direct lineage from the Digambarism, it is whether Ratrimati Kanti was a sadhvi. So at this moment, we can consider Ratrimati Kanti as a male ascetic. Okay. So again, this Gavunda is very important term because in Hare Kannada, Gavunda means the Grama Adhikari, the Adhikari of that town, the settlement. Then comes this Tarale copperplate inscription of Gandaradeva. This inscription tells about various donations of Gandaradeva in the form of land and money. The important mention is of a Jinalaya built along with Shivalaya and Buddhalaya on the bank of Gandasamudra, a lake made by the king. So this was an act of Gandaradeva when he accessed the Kolhapur throne. So what he did, that he did a lot of donations in the various parts of Kolhapur district, and there in the Mirinji Desha, that is the Miraj province, in the town of Irukudi, that town is yet to be identified. So this in the town of this Irukudi, what he did, that he created a lake and he named it after him, Ganda Samudra. And on the bank of that Ganda Samudra, the lake, he built 3 temples. One is to Arhat, that has been mentioned so in the inscription. Then one is dedicated to Shiva and one is dedicated to Buddha. So we can see that the Buddhism, Jainism, and Shaivism, all the 3 main stream sampradayas or the religions were dwelling in Kolhapur, early medieval Kolhapur. Then again, the Gandaraditya copper plate. So what it tells, the inscription talks about personal donation to Nolamba Samanta. This Samanta is nothing but a knight. Okay. So this Samanta, there they have given this lineage of this Nolamba Samanta. So he is born in the Nigumba Vamsha, then Horima, in the Nigumba Vamsha there was Horima, then Horima gave birth to Virana and his brother Arikesari. Then Arikesari gave birth to Kundati and Naima's son was this Nolamba. So here we can see that Nolamba had a great lineage in some part of Kolhapur, and he was ruling area of Kolhapur. And what this Nolamba Samanta has mentioned about himself, that he was Padmavati Labda Varaprasada. Okay, so he was blessed by the Padmavati. So many Samantas in the early medieval period, they have identified themselves as Padmavati Labda Varaprasada. They all have gained some sort of blessings from Padmavati Yakshi. Then there is this Gandaraditya Herle inscription dated to 1118 CE. So Herle is a town in the Hatkanangle Tehsil, eastward of Kolhapur. Again, it's max 45 minutes distance. Then what that inscription tells, that on the demand of Nagala Devi, Gandaradeva donated 1 mattara, that is a cubit, 1 mattara plot and a garden from Heridige to the Chandra Prabha Basti, built by Nemagaunda. Again, this Gavunda. So this Gramadhikari. So what this Gramadhikari did, that he built a Chandraprabha Basti dedicated to Chandraprabha Tirthankar in the Herulige town. That is at present it is called as Herle. And on the demand of Nagal Devi, this Nagal Devi was the mother of Gandaradeva, Gandaraditya, and she was a staunch follower of Jainism. And in that inscription, there are mentions of some acharyas, and the acharyas are as follows: Balachandra Vrati and his disciple Shantivira Siddhantideva, then Tribhuvana Chandra and Nagachandra Siddhantika. So from the inscriptions, we can understand a lot about the Jaina monks, their lineages as well. Then Gandaraditya Kolhapur inscription 1135C. This is very important inscription and very interesting one. Due to the time limits, I am going to, or rather I have put it in a very, in a nutshell, and I'm going to explain in the nutshell as well. So it is kept in the Manastamba Basdi in the Kolhapur. It is, the temple is at about 5 minutes distance from the Mahalakshmi temple. And this stone inscription, it talks about donations in the form of taxes levied on various materials on the Kavade Golda marketplace. This Kavade Golda is the name of that place, for the feeding of the Munis, then the repairs of the Parshvanatha temple there, eightfold worship of the Parshvanatha, then by following, and the donation was given by the following groups and personnels. So 500 members of Veera Badanju of Ayyavole. So this Ayyavole is Aihole in Karnataka near Badami. So this Veera Badanju was very important, group of traders, and they, kept donating to, especially they kept donating to Jainism in the Deccan region. And then some merchants were there from Kolhapur, then representatives or mayors, and in those inscriptions they have actually mentioned as Mahapaura. Okay, so the Mahapaura and Chaudhore, that is the Chaudhary. So here we can see the designations, the precursors of the designations. So the representatives or mayors or Mahapaura of Kolhapura, then Mirinji Desha, that is the Mirans, then Torambage, then Maisige, then Balaya Vattana, that is, it probably could be the Khare Patan or the Bali Pattana of South Konkan Shilaharas. Then Kavade Gola again, then the royal chartered accountant of Gandaradeva, then the accountant of Nimbadeva, the trustee of the Sun Temple at Kundipatana. So all these people gathered and they levied taxes on various materials and the trading that took place in the Kavade Gola marketplace. And the way they have levied the taxes itself is very interesting to read and study. Then the donations, all the donations were entrusted to Shruta Kirti Traividya Deva of Rupa Narayan Basti, the disciple of Maganandi Siddhanti Deva. This Maganandi Siddhanti Deva was a very important acharya from Kolhapur, and he was well revered in the Shravana-Belgola area itself. And there are inscriptions from the Shravana-Belgola that mention of this Maganandi Siddhanti Deva. They praise this Maganandi Siddhanti Deva. So we can see that the Jainism in Kolhapur was well connected with the Jainism in Shravana-Belgola. And this Maganandi Siddhanti Acharya was very important personality in developing, establishing, and sustaining the Jainism in the Deccan and in Kolhapur region in particular. Then again, there is this very important inscription of Gandaraditya. The time period has not been mentioned in the inscription itself. So we can roughly consider this time period maybe from 1130 to 1138 or something. Then it is carved actually on the 5 load-bearing beams of the ceiling. And what those inscriptions tell that in one inscription, there is this praise of Gandaradeva as he is well behaved as Bhishma. He is as good looking as Narayana, hence he is called as Rupa Narayana. Then he is as righteous as Manu, as beautiful as Madan, and born in the lineage of Jimutavahana. So the Shilaharas, they always claim themselves as in the lineage as the successors of Jimutavahana born in the lineage of Jimutavahana, the Vidyadhara. Then there is this praise of Meghanandi Muni. Okay, he is not Maghanandi, he is Meghanandi Muni. And the praise is very beautiful. It talks as follows: as the garden is beautified with presence of mango tree, as a clear lake is beautified with lotus, as an ornament is beautified with emerald, as the sky is beautified with moon, so is this Meghanandi in the lineage of Kondakunda, who had attained staunch faith in Dharma by serving Kulachandra Deva. So all the lineage from Mula Sangha, they always claim themselves, following the lineage of Kondakunda, or he is also called as Kundakunda Acharya. Okay, so every Mula Sangha follower would claim himself in the lineage of Kondakunda or Kundakunda Acharya. So he has been an important Acharya. Probably he established this Mula Sangha. Okay. Then there is this mention of Naki Rasa, his wife Champikambika, their children Billarasa, Nimbarasa, and Kavarasa, the daughter of Naki Raja and the wife of Gandaradeva, Karana Devi. Okay, so probably this Naki Rasa, he is called as Naki Raja as well, and his daughter Karana Devi was married to this Gandaradeva, and this Naki Rasa or Naki Raja was a Mahasamanta of Gandaradeva. Okay, and from this Naki Raja or Naki Rasa, the Mahasamanta throne or the Mahasamanta, what do you say, duty, it was followed by this Nimbarasa. Okay, it was succeeded by this Nimbarasa. Then there is this mention and praise of Barevaraditya. So Barevaraditya is the composer of the inscription, and probably he also carved it out. And at the end, they have praised Barevaraditya as the writer who composed the inscription, as it is said that Saraswati resided in his pen. Okay, so this inscription is very important, and the temple on which or inside the temple where these inscriptions are carved is located in the in the backside of Mahalakshmi temple. And at present, it has been converted into Sheshashahi temple. We are going to take a look at the photographs of this temple. But this temple is or was known as Rupa Narayana Basti. Okay, it was built for the Adinatha Tirthankara. Then again, mention and praise of Nimbarasa. So now they are praising this Nimbarasa because Nimbarasa has become Samanta, the Samanta of Gandaraditya. So how this Nimbarasa is praised is very important, because Nimbarasa was responsible for establishing and developing the Jainism in Kolhapur. So Nimbarasa is praised as the elephant of Nagala Devi. Okay, then devourer of enemy battalions. Then he sleeps on the land bed of defeated enemies, whose fame is like a drum, who himself is Veera Lakshmi incarnate, who has become dear fighter of his Samrata. Samrata, that is Gandaradeva. This Nimba makes the poverty vanish. He is the man of his word, never tolerates lies. He has blocked the Kali Yuga by his righteousness. He is like Bhishma in purity and ocean in equipoise. He has erected countless Jinalayas in the domain. He has settled many Jainas in the land and around him. He is always surrounded by Jaina faith. So this is how we can see that the Nagal Devi, then this Gandaradeva and Nimba Samanta, they were responsible for the Jainism to sustain and develop in Kolhapur. Nimba Deva, as though at the hands of Indra, now comes the praise of this Adinatha Basti. It is very beautiful. Nimba Deva, as though at the hands of Indra, built this Adinatha Chaitalaya. Now it is flanked by beautiful mansions of the traders and prostitutes, and adorned with a huge Manastamba and a golden door and golden Kalasha, that is the crown finial. In the dancing hall of the temple are beautiful, blissful idols. Indra has come down to reside nearby this temple. At present, there is no such glory to this temple. In fact, what remains at this moment is only the Mukhamandap of that temple. but the Mukha Mandap is very beautiful, and we're going to look at its pictures, in the next slides. Now, the son of Gandaradeva, Vijayaditya. So, what this Vijayaditya did for the Jainism? Vijayaditya grants 12 cubit house and a quarter Nivartana plot in Havin Herwege from Ajirige Khulla. Ajirige Khulla, that is the Ajra Taluk, Ajra Tehsil, to the south of Kolhapur city. So from that Ajirige Khulla, he granted 12 cubit house and a quarter Nivartana plot for the feeding of Munis, repairs of the temple, and eightfold worship of Parshvanath Bimba to Manikyanandi, disciple of Maganandi Siddhantideva. So here we can see the disciples of Maganandi Siddhantideva. The temple was built by Vasudeva, the Hadapavala of Samanta Kamadeva of Vijayaditya. Hadapavala, it means the Tambula Vahaka, the one who carries the battles or battle leaves for his master. So this Vijayaditya had a Samanta by name Kamadeva, and there was this Hadapavala by name Vasudeva. He built that Parshvanatha temple in the Havinaherige. Okay. And this Vasudeva was the disciple of Maganandi Siddhantideva, Mula Sangha Deshiyagana, and the Acharya, and this Maganandi Siddhantideva was the Acharya of Rupanarayan temple of Shullakapura. So here we can see that they had a small settlement near this Rupanarayan Basti for the Shullaka Muni. So in Digambar Jainism, the Shullak Munis are the ones who have who are allowed to wear a single loincloth, white loincloth. Okay, so the ones who are not yet ready to go complete Digambar, to go complete naked, they are allowed to wear one loincloth, and they are called as Shullakas. So there was this school for these Shullakas near the Rupanarayan Basti, and this Maganandi Siddhantideva was the Acharya, the priest of this Rupanarayan temple. Then, after the Vijayaditya, we see a direct, we skip a good time period, and we see again a Yadav Mahadeva inscription dated 1266. So we can see here a difference, 1142, then directly coming to 1266. So this inscription is carved on the pillar of Navagraha Mandap, and it is clearly readable inscription even to date. So what this inscription tells, that it tells about donation to Pomma Devi Basti. But the interesting part of this inscription is that it begins with the praise of Kolhapur Mahalakshmi. Okay. And it tells about how Mahalakshmi is beneficial to everybody and how she should bless each and every devotee. And the inscription talks about land donation to Pomma Devi Basti in the presence of Pandita Kanakachandra Deva, Heggade Basavadeva. Heggade, again, he is called, Heggade is Hale Kannattam, and Heggade, it means the Pradhan. Okay, the minister of the king. And further, the inscription mentions of Panchamatas in the vicinity of Mahalakshmi Shrine. So this Panchamatas was a very important, religious, how to put it? It was a kind of a religious group, we can say, where 5 matas or the 5 temples of 5 sects were collected, or they were erected next to each other, and all the offices were controlled by one temple. And in the case of Kolhapur, in the case of the Panchamatas near Mahalakshmi Shrine, Mahalakshmi temple was the prime office of this Panchamatas. Okay. Then again, after 1266, we get a direct inscription dated to 1774 from Vadgaon near Kolhapur, and it talks about Lakshmi Sena Acharya, and he presided over 4 Sihasanas, and the Sihasanas are named as Dilli, Karavira, Jirakanchi, and Penugomta. So here we can see that by the 18th century, Kolhapur was considered as one of the important centers of Digambar Jainism. And there is this mention of Jwalini Devi or Jwala Malini in that inscription. It is very important here. And this Lakshmi Sena Acharya he was given a space, or he was given a land in Kolhapur, and there a mutt was erected for him, and that this Lakshmi Sen mutt is still there in Shukravarpet area of Kolhapur. Now, after getting introduced with the Jainism from inscriptions, let us get introduced with Jainism in Kolhapur from art and architecture. So here is the list of the temples that we are going to look at. So first is Parshvanatha Basti, that is the Manastambha Basti. Then there is this Adinatha Basti in Kolhapur, then Adinatha Basti in Khidrapur, then Omkareshwar Temple, then Pomma Devi Basti Mandapa, then Adinatha or Rupanarayan Basti, that is the Sheshashai Temple. So the Parshvanatha Basti or Manastambha Basti. It is the temple. This is the site where we get those two interesting inscriptions. One is of Gandhardeva and one is of Vijayaditya. One is Gandhardeva's inscription is dated to 1135 and Vijayaditya's inscription is dated to 1142. And as I mentioned earlier, the Veerabananju and the taxation process and everything that has been mentioned in that 1135 inscription here. So this Parshvanatha Basti or Manastambha Basti, this temple is in Bhumija type of architecture, and here we can see the stellate plan. So here is this Manastambha. It has been erected in recent years, and here you can see the walls are pretty plain. In architectural, these walls are called as Shuddha Janga, the walls that are not ornate, either with foliage or with sculptures. Then here are those inscriptions of Gandhardeva and Vijayadeva. Okay, the inscriptions that I mentioned earlier. And here is the plan of that Parshvanatha Basti, Manastambha Basti. So here you can see that how the temple is stellate in form. And if it was remained intact, then the shikhar, of course, would have been in Bhumija style of architecture. And here is the photograph of the Toran of that temple. Then there is this Adinatha Basti. It is towards south of Mahalakshmi temple. And from this Adinatha Basti, if we go on counting the temples, then we can understand that there was this cluster of temples, and all those temples were dedicated to Jainism. Only two temples are in living tradition where they are, the Jina Bimbas are still worshipped. Rest of the temples have been converted into Hindu temples. So here is this Adinatha Basti. And again, the Jangas are Shuddha Jangas because the temple is inornate. And there are beautiful carvings inside the mandap of this temple. And here you can see one incident from the Rama, and here you can see this Hanuman. Here is the entrance of the area of that Adinatha Mandir. And here you can see this Yakshini. So at present, this Yakshini is being worshipped as a Hindu deity. But from the iconography, we can clearly see that this is Yakshini, Jaina Yakshini. Then there is this Adinatha Basti in Khidrapur. Khidrapur is famous for this Kopeshwara temple. But next to this Kopeshwara temple, there is this Adinatha Basti. It is small in scale as compared to Kopeshwara temple, but it is very important because it is very ornate with various sculptures, and it seems that it has got influence from the Kopeshwara temple itself. Probably the Kopeshwara temple and this Adinatha Basti were constructed at the same time. So it is ornate with a lot of sculptures, and here you can see how the temple is built. Here you can see the projection, you can see the sculptures. So here is a sculpture probably of Ambika Yakshi. Here you can see the lion and the child seated over this lion. And here is this sculpture of Saraswati. So you can see this rosary beads, then the Pustak, then Pasha and Ankusha. So Saraswati was well revered in Jainism. Then Here are two sculptures of yakshas. Probably he could be Kubera Yaksha, because he carries bow and arrow, but there is no elephant here. So, his identification as Kubera Yaksha is still skeptical. So here we can see how the sculptures have been, arranged on the temple wall. And inside this temple, there is this beautiful carving, and it has been kept in the wall actually, but it was a part of what do you say, backdrop of the Jinabimba. So here you can see how they have carved this Ashtadikpalas. For example, this is Nirutti, Naravaha Nirutti, the one who rides on a Nara, a human figure, or a Rakshasa figure, demon figure. So he is Nirutti. And here is Vayu, the one the antelope. And here is Varuna, the lord of West, and he rides a Makara. Then coming to this Omkareshwar temple. This, as I said earlier, in the, if we start tracing the temples from that Adinatha Basti, so from that temple, when we start counting the temples, we end up here at this Omkareshwar temple. So it has been, at present, it has been converted into a Shivalaya, but originally it is a Jinalaya, and there are a lot of evidences that can clearly show the temple's affiliation towards Jainism. So for example, here we can see a Jinibimba carved outside the temple, and here is a plan of the temple. So the temple is again beautiful with beautified with such sculptures, and the ceiling of the Mukhamandapa of this temple. It is very important. It is very beautiful, and it is called, technically it is called as Karotaka ceiling, okay, or Shipta Ukshipta. So Karotaka, it means it almost like Karotaka, it almost like a skull, So in the shape of this skull, this ceiling is carved. And here is the view of this temple. Unfortunately, the superstructure is not present here. The original superstructure is not present here, but you can see how beautiful this temple is. And coming to this Pomma Devi Basti, which is at present called as Navagraha Mandapa, but it is actually Ashtadikpal Mandapa. And only what remains here is this Mandapa. Okay, sorry. What remains here is this mandapa, and on the ceiling of this mandapa, we can see here how they have carved this Ashtadikpalas. And in that mandapa, we can see this Jinabimba carved here. And in on one of the pillars there, we can see this 1266 inscription of Yadav King. Then there is this Adinatha or Rupanarayan Basti that is called as Sheshashai temple at present. So again, we can see here that what remains is the part of this Mukhamandapa only. And here is the entrance, and here we can see Gomuksha of Adinatha. Right. And here we the Jinibimbas carved on the upper part of the temple. And again, the ceiling, the current style of ceiling that we can see here. And below this ceiling are these Jinabimbas. And below these Jinabimbas are the inscriptions, the 5 inscriptions. Then to sum up, Shilaharas, especially the Gandhara Deva and his mother Nagal Devi and Mahasamanta Nimba Deva, they gave immense patronage to Jainism, and that we can see from the inscriptions, that is from 1100 to 1135 or 38. Then a majority of Mula Sangha Jainas dwell in Kolhapur. Jainism in Kolhapur was same as the Jainism in Karnataka. And during the early medieval period, the Jainas and Shaivas had tolerance policies towards each other. Hence, we see their temples in the same vicinity. the Panchamatha that I mentioned earlier. So in this Panchamatha, there were Shaivas, then Shaktas, Ganapatyas, then Jainas were there, and perhaps at some points Buddhas were also there. But the number of Buddha temples is very rare, very less. Okay, so here we can see how they had this tolerance policies towards each other, and the dominant sect in that region used to take control of the mathas and their all economic affairs as well. And here are some suggested readings. Okay.
Thank you so much, Yogesh sir. It was an indeed insightful and very informative lecture. This lecture has enlightened us on the contemporary structure of Jainism in the medieval Kolhapur region. Also, this session has raised some questions and doubts. So, if you give me permission, I would like to ask you quite a few questions.
Sure.
Okay. So, the first question is, where the relations between Jainism and other religions, apart from Shaivism, were cordial and peaceful in the Kolhapur, as against to what happened in some parts of South India?
Can you repeat the question, because there was some error in your vocal projection?
Okay. Where the relations between Jainism and other religions were cordial and peaceful in Kolhapur, as against to what happened in some parts of South India?
Yes, in Kolhapur, especially as far as the evidences go, Jainas and Shaivas, they were pretty tolerant with each other. And there is one again evidence that is from Terdad in the Bagalkot Tehsil, and there, a relative of Shila's, Ratta Raja of Saundati, he erected a Neminath temple, and for the coronation ceremony of that Neminath temple, the Shaiva Acharyas from Kolhapur were invited along with their disciples, and they went there and they, did this coronation ceremony, or the temple opening ceremony. So here we can see the, what do you say, tolerance policy towards, Jainas towards Shaivas and Shaivas towards Jainas.
How were the relations amongst the different Jaina sects within the sect and among the region?
Can you repeat, please?
How were the relations among the Jaina sects in the region?
Okay.
Specifically.
Okay. As far as Kolhapur is concerned, so Kolhapur was dominated by the Mula Sangha only. We don't see Yapaniyas in Kolhapur. We don't see Shvetambaras in Kolhapur. Not, at least not in inscriptions, not in any other texts. So Mula Sangha was the dominant. So there was nothing to adjust with,
Do we find any physical evidences of other sects apart from texts or inscriptions, like in temples or in any kind of sculpture, loose sculpture?
No, we don't find any Yapaniyas here. We don't find any Shvetambaras here. At least from the early medieval period, we don't find any Shvetambaras in Kolhapur.
Okay. Another question. Why were Jain temples kept plain and simple as against Shaivite, Shakta or Vaishnava temples in the region?
That is a good question. Actually, it has been there on my mind. And I would say that I haven't come up to a conclusion, but I would say, using my logic, considering the philosophy of the Jainas, then they were the, especially these Digambaras, they were the Nirvana Margi. So they always wanted to abstain themselves from the worldly pleasures, and maybe this is the reason their walls are pretty plain. Only exception is the Adinatha temple in Khidrapur, where we can see, the sculptures that literally have been copied from the Kopeshwara temple on that temple. So this is again an exception here.
Okay, since you have mentioned Adinath Basti, if the center of Jainism was at Kolhapur, then why such an ornate Basti was created at Khidrapur and not in the Kolhapur city itself?
Why? Could you repeat? There is some sort of error in the vocal projection. I don't know.
Why such an ornate basti was created in Khidrapur city, like away from the Kolhapur city?
Okay, got it. See, basically, Khidrapur was an important center. It was an important center from all aspects because it was a Mahatirtha for the Shaivas. An inscription in the Kopeshwar temple, it talks about Kopa Mahatirtha. Since it was a great religious center, and it was again an important center for the administration as well, because we see two inscriptions of from the period of Bhoja II, where wars were fought with the Kalchuris. So we can see that it was a good administration center, then religious center, and probably this is the reason that the Jaina temple, the Adinath temple was pretty ornate. And of course, we can see from the scale of the temples that Shaivas were dominating that temple. So there are chances that these Shaivas could have, employed the same artists for the Adinatha Basti. And of course, as I said, that they had this tolerance policies towards each other. So there are chances that Jainas might have picked up some sort of tantric practices from the Shaivas and Shaktas as well. That needs to be studied further, but there are chances, there are possibilities. And this can be well reflected from these sculptures.
Okay. Carvings of Tirthankaras can be seen at the Mahalakshmi temple in Kolhapur. Is this also due to the influence of Jainism in the region, or was it because Jaina remains were used in the construction or renovation of the temple?
Yes, they were the Jaina remains, because as I said earlier, that there were at least, from the inscriptional evidences, we see that at least two Jaina temples were nearby this Mahalakshmi temple. One is this Uma Devi Basti and one is this Rupa Narayan Basti. Both the Bastis are not intact now. So the temples were destroyed, and whatever temple parts were gathered to, rebuild the Mahalakshmi temple. So they just took it and rebuilt the temple, and this is why we see some Jaina sculptures in the Mahalakshmi temple itself, but they are taken from the destroyed bastis, nearby bastis.
Okay. Are there any legends in the region about any Tirthankara visiting the region?
No, there are no such legends.
Okay. Okay. Kolhapur is the only city with two Jain mathas in the area. So what are the lineages of the Bhattarakas of the mathas?
Lineage?
Yeah.
Okay. See, as I said, Mula Sangha, they always call themselves as Konda Kundanvaya. So in the lineage of Konda Kunda Muni or Kunda Kunda Muni. So Mula Sangha always, affiliates itself or claims itself to be in the lineage of Konda Kundanvaya, Konda Kunda Muni. So that's the only lineage Mula Sangha has got.
Okay. Last question. Is the conversion of the Jain temples into Hindu temples simply due to the decline of the Jaina sect, or does it point to the tensions between Jaina and other sects?
I hardly think there were tensions, because of some examples in the South India. We cannot apply the same strategy here in each and every converted temple. Because I said earlier that Jaina temples or Jainas and other sects or the Sampradayas, the religions, were pretty tolerant with each other. They were dwelling in each other's vicinities. So the temples, the Jaina temples that have been converted into temples, it is only due to this decline of Jainism in Kolhapur.
Okay, so that's it for the question. Thank you for your time for the session and clearing so many doubts. Yogesh Prabhudesai, for so much valuable information and giving us your time. I also would like to thank our participants for joining this session. I also would like to thank Dr. Shrikant Ganvir for joining our today's session. And last but not the least, to the whole team for